Welcome back. My name's Tom, and I am still working on this Porsche 915 transaxle for my hot rod 911. It's taken me forever. Just about everything that could go wrong with this transmission has gone wrong. Last time I discovered that this race right here, or this housing, has evidence of a spun bearing. And when I pulled the bearing off of this, it came off really easy. So there's no point putting a new bearing on if it's just gonna spin and slip anyways. So this whole housing, kind of from here to here will get replaced. I can reuse the ring gear. I know the ring gear is fine. And I can reuse these spider gears, but we gotta fully disassemble this too. Luckily, this ring and pinion system is okay. But like I said, it's a 731. I prefer the 831. My next transmission will use the 831. It's also stronger. I've got this guy mounted in my vise now so I can work on these lock plates. When I cut these lock plates off, they can't be reused. I think I can reuse the bolts though. These are not stretch bolts. These are just high grade bolts that should be fine. As long as the heads are okay, we can reuse it. I wonder if we can cut through these. Cut right through. Okay, I think those are all reasonably opened up now. Let's rip them out. More junk parts. These are new pliers to me. These are the Nipex ones, and they are pretty good. Adjustable pliers, you just open them up like that. They just have good grip, and they don't harm things because the jaws are smooth, so I really like them so far. The easiest way to get these bolts off would be an impact wrench, but I'm gonna try to measure the breakaway torque just so I know how tight this assembly is. And I'll re-torque it, of course, with the torque wrench too, but sometimes it's better to learn something as you disassemble it rather than just rip it apart. It looks like the ring gear bolts for a traditional differential is, I'm assuming these are 11.9 even though they aren't marked, 85 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna dial up 85 and see if it'll come apart. 75, 85. Yeah, it came off before it clicked, so these have lost a little bit of their preload. Doesn't help that my vise is turning and the table's moving. So let's get these off. Let's see which ones. I got this one and this one. None of these are torqued to 85 pounds, so they've lost a little bit of their clamping force. Also, I don't want the impact wrench to damage the part of the head where it contacts the hardened differential. I mean, you really could put new bolts on this too, but I'm gonna reuse these ones. This can't have any burrs on it, otherwise when it goes on to the other differential, this gear could wobble. And if this wobbles in the car, you're gonna have varying backlash all around. So we'll clean this up in the ultrasonic cleaner as well. Make sure all the old grease is out of those threads too. Next thing to do is to push this roll pin out. This roll pin should just push out. It doesn't look like it's a real solid pin, so that should come out pretty easy. right, that's most of the way out. I don't know if it needs to come all the way out, but let's see what we can get apart here. Looks like that guy comes out. And then this gear looks like it's too big to come through that hole. So we have to move it around. I think we can get this gear out first. And then this gear out the back side. And then this gear comes out that way. That's the piece that held the pin in there. There's two little pieces the drive shaft goes into, and then this is the final spider right here. And then this is just the bare casting. This is the piece of junk. So if anyone's interested in making one of those dial indicator tools that I have, this would be a good one for that, because you can still turn this down, smooth it up, make it so the bearings go on and off easy, and then you basically just end up cutting these bolt holes off. You just put that in the lathe, machine it down, and then you have to machine off one of these surfaces up here to make it flat. So a lot of sludge builds up in these grooves. This is after the ultrasonic cleaner even, and this stuff is caked in there. So I guess it's a good thing that I'm taking this apart. Just really clean it off, So a lot of places will advertise rebuild transmission for like $1,200 or something. I am doubtful they go through this type of cleaning on the parts. I mean, I could be wrong, but this is the advantage of kind of doing work by yourself, is you can just spend as much time as you want. My next transmission, which is the higher powered one, is going to get limited slip, and at that time I will replace the bolts with the high tension bolts, the 12.9 grade. That's just added insurance and added clamping pressure for something that will generate more horsepower than stock. But this transmission's going back together all stock. This differential housing has been painted previously. So pressure washing this is actually removing some of that paint. I had put some brake fluid on it to kind of eat that paint away, and now this pressure washer is mostly just blowing it off. And it's cleaning the inside pretty well too. All these components are now very clean, ultrasonically cleaned, and I pressure washed all these gears, so there's no residue, no nothing on them. And the housing's also clean. The mating surface here for the ring gear is really nice. Everything's been smoothed and basically ready to put it back together. The manual does call for some molybdenum grease, like assembly lube. So I'm just going to use this assembly lube to put the big gears in. Like these mating surfaces here, the shiny spot here coincides with the shiny spot inside there. And we definitely don't need to go overboard on the assembly lube. Basically that's enough right there, just real light. This is going to get oil right away. In fact, this thing's pretty much submerged in oil. So let's put that there. And then these guys go pointing up. So that's pointed up in there, and that locks in place with the splines. Okay, I'm just gonna keep these parallel, and I'm gonna put these gears on the side. And so I'm letting this one sit there, that one's parallel, and I'm gonna insert this one from this side. Kind of hold it there. And I'm going to insert this one from this side. Hold it there. And then just swing the whole thing 90 degrees and hopefully it lines up. Yeah, so that works. So you got to make use of the windows on either side. That's what they're for, and it makes total sense now. Just have to fumble with it a little bit. This block here looks like the block faces with the openings towards me. So let's put this guy in. Yep. I'm going to grab the bolts that hold these together because I need to hold those splines in position, and I think if I had the bolts on there, it would be easier to lock them in. This time I'm going to put the output flange on so I can hold everything together a little bit better. Because this will lock into there. That holds it a little bit better for me. And then this guy goes in there like so. So that's what I'm doing, and then I can use this bolt to hold that upper gear in place. So now that upper gear is held to the roof with its bolt. So that's kind of handy having that way. And then gravity is going to hold the lower one down. It's not held in, but it's floating, but I have it sort of parallel to the upper one. I'm going to sneak this guy in from the back and this guy in from the front. And ideally, should be able to see straight through there, just like that. So everything looks perpendicular to me right now. So I'm going to, without moving anything, I'm going to take that out. I'm going to slide this one in, like so, and I'm going to put the gear back. And hopefully everything is still perpendicular. So everything is still perpendicular. I'm just going to rotate everything so it's lining up with the side. Make sure it all rotates together, just like that. Now I'm going to try to slide the pin in if it will. Yeah. So there it is now. Everything looks like it's even. So this height here is the same as this height right here. So when I turn one flange, everything stays perpendicular with itself. Yeah, it's nice and tight. Pin going in looks good, and it's pretty even on both sides. There's that side. And then there's that side. Just for fun, I'm gonna grab the other output flange just to make sure that it all fits. No binding or anything. So this surface here is nice and clean. I've just wiped it off with a paper towel, making sure there's no dust or anything on that surface. It's got to be absolutely clean. The other thing I wanted to show you is these bolts are nice and clean. So when they go in these threads, they spin almost down on their own. There's no resistance at all for any of these bolts going into all these holes. If you have anything that's got extra friction on there, then that's bad for the torque value. So these just go in really nice. Every single hole has been checked and there's no burrs or any thread damage on these bolts. They're good to use as is. This flange here is nice and smooth, so no galling or anything on the head of the bolt. That means it's okay to reuse it. The manual does not say to lube these threads or the head of the bolt when you install it. So these are all dry, including the holes there in the ring. So let's put it together. So because this has never been mounted on here before, there's no markings or orientation to it. So basically just going to bolt it up wherever it looks right and call it a day. Need to kind of hold it here while I do this. Now you could put Loctite on these, but I don't think it's really needed because it's going to have lock tabs, which is probably stronger than the Loctite, given that this is going to get pretty hot and it's going to be in oil the whole time. So I'm not putting Loctite on. I'm going to do this twice. First time it's going to be 50 foot-pounds. And we just, snug them up first so we get it nice and flat. And each time I torque it, I'm just going to put a little Sharpie mark on there so I know where I've been. And just go opposite diagonal. There's that guy. That's everything to 50, and now I'm just going to bump it up to 85, which is the final torque. 75, 85, and then I just lock down my wrench. I'm going to start here. And then I'll put a mark the other way so I know I've already done that one. All right, so now we have a differential that's assembled and ready to put in the car. It's fully cleaned. The lock tabs are on order. I don't have them yet, so I need to remember to put the lock tabs in and of course bend them over so all these won't fall out. The next thing to do is to set up the spacers that go between the bearings in this housing. And to do that, we need to, it's called the preload and it's also called the backlash. So once the preload is determined, that's the total width of the housing, how much it flexes the cover. And then the backlash will be just move shims from one side to the other to move this gear in or out of the pinion contacts patch. There's another thing I wanted to do, which is take out all the spring detents. So I pulled this plug. This is a press fit. I just, used the chisel and hammered it out. The problem is, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is that these pieces inside here are stuck because somebody, when they painted this thing, they also sandblasted it. And the sand is now in between these pieces. So if you listen really carefully, you can hear the grittiness of this detent as it slides. So I've been soaking it in penetrating oil and all kinds of stuff, trying to free up these components. But the only way I can get it all the way out is a special trick I thought I would show you guys. I'm using several of these plastic balls. I have a whole bag of these plastic balls. And basically what I'm doing is I'm pushing them down this hole. I'm going to set that one in there. And then I'm using a pry tool like this one. It's got the ends all rounded off. So basically I push this in here and then I'm prying this down. And as I pry that down, it's pushing all this stuck spring and the detents out the hole. There's no other way to get it out. I tried compressed air, I tried everything. So there's another ball down the hole. I got about 3 or 4 balls in there already. So what I thought was a simple task is turned out to be a difficult one. So I've got balls all the way down here, just now getting that pin out. So maybe now I can grab it with some pliers. These have soft jaws on there. So this is really just a mess. There goes some of the plastic balls. So we got to use the same ball method in this section. Apparently we got to put the ball right there. Pry that down. And there it is, finally. You can see how that is just full of sand and just junk. This is all the penetrating oil holding all that sand, but it is not good. Resist the urge to sandblast your transmission. It's really not a good idea. Even if you are going to sandblast it, you got to remove this stuff first, because now I got to pressure wash and clean out this whole galley so there's no sand in there. Otherwise, this stuff's never going to work again. These are the parts I took out of there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. I'm going to go check the manual and see if anything's missing. I am still waiting on the differential shims that go right here. They're on back order and they just haven't arrived yet. So as soon as I get the pinion depth finalized, then we can work on that preload and the backlash measurement here for that differential. Now the differential's done, just waiting on, like I said, those pinion shims. Have a nice weekend, everybody. Take care.